So, when you think about the global hubs for artificial intelligence, what comes to mind? Silicon Valley, right? Maybe Shanghai? Well, today we're going to look at a place that is absolutely reshaping that map. We're diving deep into the story of AI in Africa.
You gotta forget all the old, outdated narratives. Seriously, right now, there's this quiet but incredibly powerful AI-driven transformation happening. And it's not just in one or two little tech hubs. Nope. This is a massive, continent-wide movement, and it's all about building real solutions for real, local problems. But before we get into the cool stuff, let's just make sure we're on the same page about what we even mean by AI here.
Okay, so just to be clear, we are talking about way more than just your average chatbot. We're talking about something called AI agents. Now, these are basically smart, autonomous programs that can look at a situation, make a decision, and then actually do something about it, all without a human constantly looking over their shoulder. You can think of them like little digital problem solvers, off doing their thing. But, and this is a big but, for these agents to actually work, you need to have the right environment.
Yeah, this stuff doesn't just spring up out of nowhere, you know? An AI ecosystem, it's something you have to build, carefully, piece by piece, on a really solid foundation. So the big question is, what are those essential building blocks? What do you actually need to kickstart this kind of digital revolution?
Well, it really boils down to three big things, three core pillars. First, you've got to have the actual infrastructure, the hardware, the internet connection, the digital highways, so to speak. Second, you need data, and not just any data, but data that actually understands what's going on locally. And third, you need some smart rules, some good governance to make sure everything runs smoothly. Let's break each of those down.
So that first pillar, infrastructure, it's getting built out and it's happening fast. I mean, check this out. Microsoft and a company called G42 just dropped $1 billion, $1 billion, to build a huge data center in Kenya. And we're not just talking about a big building full of servers. This thing is literally the engine room for the future, providing all that raw computing power that AI is so hungry for.
And that brings us to that second absolutely critical pillar, data. I mean, think about it. AI is pretty much useless if it can't understand the local language, the local context. For the longest time, a language like Swahili was practically invisible to AI just because there wasn't enough data. But that's changing. Now there are these amazing projects creating huge data sets. The techie term is corpora, so developers can finally build AI that actually truly speaks the language. And finally, we've got that third pillar, policy and governance. This is so important because all this growth isn't just some Wild West free-for-all. Not at all. There's real thoughtful planning going on here. You've got big continent-wide strategies from the African Union, and then you have really specific national plans, like these guidelines from Tanzania on using AI in their schools. It shows there's a real strategic vision guiding all of this.
Okay, so we've got the foundation, infrastructure, data, and policy. But what does that actually mean for people's daily lives? Let's take a look at how these building blocks are being used to create some incredible, real-world solutions to real-world problems.
All right, first stop on our quick tour, Ethiopia. Here, AI is completely changing education. We're talking edtech platforms that go way beyond the old one-size-fits-all classroom, creating learning experiences that literally adapt to each and every student's personal needs. Next, let's jump over to Nigeria, where AI is literally saving lives. A company called LifeBank is using it to figure out the super complex logistics of delivering blood and other critical medical supplies. We're talking about getting the right thing to the right place at the right time. It's incredible. Then in Kenya, you've got some seriously cutting-edge healthcare tech. A place called Neuro Labs has built AI algorithms that can look at medical images and spot signs of disease, things that even a trained human eye might miss. That means earlier diagnoses and way better outcomes for patients. And it's not just healthcare, it's disaster response too. After that horrible earthquake in Morocco back in 2023, AI was used to instantly analyze satellite images. This helped relief teams figure out where the worst damage was so they could get aid to the people who needed it most, and fast. And wrapping up our little tour in South Africa, AI is basically becoming a core part of the modern economy. It's making e-commerce logistics run smoother, and it's powering the complex engines behind their future smart city projects. As you can see, the range of what's happening is just huge. But all this cool tech, it's really only half the story. The other half, maybe the more important half, is the human side of the equation. What does all of this mean for jobs, for skills, for the actual people who are building and living in this new future? And that brings us to the big question everyone is asking about AI no matter where you are in the world. Is this thing a job killer or a job creator? You've got the dystopian view, right, that predicts massive job losses. And then you have the more optimistic take, which says, hey, we'll go through a transition, but a whole bunch of new jobs will pop up.
So, instead of just talking theory, let's look at a real-world example of how this is actually playing out. We're going to look at a fascinating case study, a social enterprise in South Africa called Harambee. They are right in the middle of this whole debate, using AI specifically to fight youth unemployment.
Now, what's so interesting about how Harambee does things is that they're not just trying to automate everything. They use AI as a tool to help their human staff make better decisions. So, the algorithms will analyze the job market, find potential matches for young people, but a person always makes the final call. And maybe most importantly, they know their data could be biased, and they are constantly working to find and fix those biases.
And this isn't some small-scale effort. The push to build up these new skills is happening on a massive scale. Just look at this number, 1 million. That's how many South Africans Microsoft is planning to train in AI and cybersecurity. Think about that. That's not just a pilot program. That is a monumental investment in people, in building up the local talent to not just create this tech, but to manage it and govern it ethically.
Okay, but let's be real. This isn't all sunshine and roses. The road ahead has some pretty major challenges. If the goal is to build an AI future that's truly fair and includes everyone, then we have to be willing to face some very tough questions.
You hear this term a lot, leapfrogging. It's this exciting idea that new technology like AI can let countries just accelerate their development, skipping over the slow, painful stages that other places had to endure. And on the surface, that sounds amazing, but there's a huge risk hidden inside all that speed.
What happens if all that acceleration is make the old problems even worse, but just faster? Let's go back to Harambee in South Africa for a second. They have to be so careful because the historical data they work with is still shaped by the spatial planning of apartheid. Those policies literally decided where people could and couldn't live. That bias is baked right into the data. If you just let an algorithm run wild on that data, it won't just repeat those injustices, it will pour gasoline on them.
And this leads to this really powerful, almost counterintuitive idea. In this global race to innovate and go faster, 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 maybe the best thing to do is actually to slow down. It's a concept called slow AI. The idea is that being more deliberate, more thoughtful, more cautious, that might be the path to getting better, fairer results in the long run.
So what does this slower, more thoughtful path actually look like in practice? Well, it means getting data policies aligned across the continent so everyone's playing by the same clear rules. It means you have to actually assess the social and economic risks before you roll out a new AI system. It means you got to build up local talent, not just in programming, but in ethics, in governance, in cybersecurity. And, maybe most importantly, it means investing public money to fix the root inequalities that AI could accidentally exploit.
So, here's the bottom line. The story of AI in Africa isn't finished. In fact, it's being written as we speak, and it's at this incredible crossroads. The tech itself, it's just code. It's neutral, but its impact, that won't be neutral at all. So the question is, will it be a tool that builds a more inclusive, more equitable future, or will it just end up being a shiny, high-tech mirror that reflects and even magnifies the old inequalities? The answer to that question really depends on the choices being made right now.